Let me start by saying we should never place text in a drawing until we know our intended plot scale. If we don't know the scale at which our drawing will be plotted, we have no way of knowing if the text we create will even be readable when our drawing is printed on paper. In this session, we're going to learn how we can predictably size the text we place in model space. Now I'm going to open a drawing. I'm going to come up and click my Open icon. And we're going to look inside the Chapter 15 folder located inside the Exercise Files directory. And we're going to come down and open up drawing number 8, Properly Sizing Model Space Text. So I'll highlight that drawing and click Open. Now on my screen I've got an architectural example. This happens to be a drawing of a basketball court. If I zoom in at the center court area, we can also see that I have a basketball. I'm going to do a zoom extents, so I'm going to double click my wheel to back up so we can view the whole drawing. And I'm going to jump out onto my 8.5 by 11 layout. Now I've created a layout for an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. I've already inserted my company title block, and at this point I want to cut a viewport. Now good form says we should create the viewport on a layer of its own. As you can see, I've already created a layer, and that layer happens to be current. So I am going to cut my viewport, coming up to my viewport toolbar and clicking on the single viewport icon. At this point, I'm just going to click 2 points on my screen to define my viewport rectangle. Now be careful of the running object snap. I don't intend on going full screen with this, so I'm going to click right about here, such that I don't grab the corner of my title block. And I'm going to come over and click right about here. That should be good enough. Now by default, when we cut a viewport, AutoCAD gives us a zoom extents view. Let's set this viewport to a measurable scale. I'll click the viewport edge. We'll come down to our VP scale setting and click the drop down. Now since this is an architectural example, I'm going to use an architectural scale. I want to set the scale of this viewport to 1/16 of an inch equals a foot. So I'm going to come up and select this scale. That guy will now plot such that 1/16 of an inch equals a foot. Now let's go to model space. Let's say I would like to label my basketball court. I'm going to zoom in this area, and I'd like to place some text. Now it's important to remember that the text that I'm placing needs to be readable when this drawing is plotted. Now when my drawing is plotted, I would like my text to measure 1/8 of an inch tall on the sheet. That is a typical architectural text size. So to create 1/8 inch size text, all I have to do is multiply 1/8 of an inch times the scale factor of my viewport. Since my viewport is set to 1/16 of an inch, my scale factor is 192. Now if you don't know how I came up with 192, please watch the video where I show you how to calculate your scale factor. Since I'm creating text, let's practice good form. I'm going to click the drop down and I'm going to set my text layer current. And let's create our text. Draw toolbar, and I'm going to come down to text, and in the flyout I'm going to select single line text. AutoCAD asks me to start point. Let me pick a point on screen. Once again, I'm being cautious of my running object snap. Now AutoCAD's asking me to specify a text height. Remember, my text height's going to be 1/8 of an inch multiplied by 192. Let's use our quick calculator. I'm inside the text command. I'm just going to come up and click my quick calculator. And I'm going to type in 1/8 inch. I'm using my keyboard to put in the quotes, times 192. I'll hit enter, and my answer happens to be 2 feet. That means if I want my text to measure 1/8 of an inch on the paper, I'll need to place my text in model space with a height of 2 feet. Let me click apply. That number gets dropped to the command line. I'll hit enter to accept it. And now I'm going to hit enter to accept a rotation of 0. I'm going to type my text, and when I'm done, I'm going to hit enter twice. Enter, enter. Let's go back out to our layout tab. When I click on the layout tab, notice that my text is very easy to read, and if plotted, this text would measure 1/8 of an inch tall. Let's try this. I want to cut one more viewport. I'm going to come up and click my viewport button. I'm going to click a point right here. We'll come down and click another point right here. And I'm going to set this viewport to a different scale. Let me click the edge. In this viewport, I want to set my scale to 3/4 of an inch equals a foot because I want to zoom in on the basketball. So I'm going to come down to my VP scale, click the drop down, and we'll set the scale of this viewport to 3/4 of an inch equals a foot. Notice I can have multiple viewports at different scales. Now remember, our viewport should be on a layer of its own. I wasn't practicing good form there. I put him on the wrong layer. That's all right. Let's fix him using the layer control. I'll click the drop down and I'll select a viewport, and he's good. Let me hit escape. Let's create some text in model space such that it's legible in this viewport. I'm going to go back to model space. Let's zoom in on the basketball. Now once again, I want my text to measure 1/8 of an inch high when it's printed. So all I have to do is take 1/8 of an inch times my scale factor. If my viewport scale is 3/4 of an inch equals a foot, my scale factor is 16. So I need to take 1/8 of an inch times 16. Let's try that. I'm going to go up to the draw pull down. We'll come down to text, and we'll select single line text. Specify start point. I'm going to pick a point right here. Specify height. Well, I can't figure that out in my head. Let's go to the quick calculator, and I'm just going to type in 1/8 inch times my scale factor, which happens to be 16. I need to put this text in with a height of 2 inches. Let me click apply. It just dropped that text at the command line, and I'll hit enter. Then I'll hit enter to accept the rotation. Once I finish my text, I'll hit enter twice. Let's jump back out to the layout tab. Notice I have geometry being represented at 2 different scales, yet I have text created such that it's legible in both viewports and will plot at 1/8 of an inch tall. Once we know our intended plot scale, we can use our scale factor to accurately calculate the height of our model space text, such that it will be consistently and predictably sized across all of our viewports.